Hello, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, depending on what part of the country or the world that you're calling in from. My name is Lawrence Gerdeska. I am the webinar host today for our presentation, Boost Year-End Donations with a Plan That Starts Right Now. We're going to get started in just a moment, not right now, but very shortly. We're waiting for a few more folks to join us. We do have 500 folks registered for this webinar, which is really exciting. Folks from all over the country and the world, some great organizations, and really are honored to have you with us today to share some information about how you can improve your year-end fundraising campaigns. We have folks from UNICEF, Save Our Canyons, Equality Now, McKesson, Green America, Drug Policy Alliance, NRDC, Greenpeace, Smart Meme. The list goes on and on. So thank you for joining us. Pathways to Housing DC, Hannah just chimed in. Laura from the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. So really delightful list of organizations and individuals with us today. While we are getting started, I would add that we have a hashtag that we'll be live tweeting at. In fact, the tweeting is happening as I speak. The hashtag is year-end, and if you want to join in the fun on Twitter, if you want to share some of the information that you gleaned today with your networks, please do that. We would be delighted to have you join that conversation. All right, and I think that we will get started. Just want to note that there is a chat window on the left-hand side of your ReadyTalk screen. That is the window in which you can enter any questions that you have throughout the course of the webinar, and we'll be answering questions at the end. Additionally, we'll be sending some high points of the webinar, some major takeaways for you, so follow along in that chat window if you're interested. And our agenda is on the screen right now. We are going to be talking a little bit to start about who Change.org is. And then we're going to be talking the bulk of the webinar about a great year-end plan, walking through the steps that you need to take starting now in August all the way to December to make the most out of your year-end fundraising. And we're going to talk about what steps your specific organization can take and some resources that you can use to get started. And we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. As I mentioned, the hashtag that you can see in the upper right-hand corner of this screen is year-end, and we would love to have you join us on Twitter. However, on the webinar, I am joined by two of my favorite people in the world. They also happen to be two of my colleagues, Andrea Wood, a senior campaign strategist here at Change.org, and Kate Thomas. Andrea, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody.
Awesome. Andrea is a consummate professional, 10 years of experience in the nonprofit world, building strong communities of supporters and literally raising millions of dollars with organizations and as a consultant. And Kate, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Kate. Kate brings a bevy of experience in list segmentation, welcome strategy, and donor conversion and fundraising best practices. So Kate and Andrea are the content experts that will be speaking to us in just a minute. And as I mentioned, my name is Lawrence Gerdeska. I am the nonprofit community manager at Change.org that brings all of these trainings to you in the nonprofit world to help you be the most effective you can be with your online advocacy and fundraising campaigns. And of course, we all work at Change.org. Change.org is an open platform that empowers anyone, anywhere to start, join, and win campaigns for causes they care about. And you may know about us through our free petition tool, but it's our mission really to develop the best online campaigning tools to create real change in the world. And with multiple victories every day at this point that we're seeing on our platform, the world has been noticing. In fact, our founder and CEO, Ben Rattray, was just recognized by the Nonprofit Times as one of the 50 most influential people in the nonprofit world, which is an incredible honor for us and for Ben. But really, it's not about Ben or about Change.org. It's about the millions of individuals and organizations on the Change.org platform making real change in the world every day. Change.org is a certified B Corp. That's a social benefit corporation, and we've got a pretty awesome business model that I want to tell you briefly about. We are able to connect the amazing community of individuals that come to Change.org to make a difference and sign petitions, and we connect them with organizations working on causes that those individuals care about through our sponsor campaign service. So we're able to provide nonprofits with passionate, highly targeted new supporters that they can cultivate over time into advocates, activists, and donors. So to put all that together in a quick example, you can see Molly Catchpole in the middle of the circle right here. She created a campaign against Bank of America that was signed by hundreds of thousands of individuals. And we are then, through the Change.org platform and our intelligent matching service, able to connect those individuals with our clients, nonprofits across the world that need new supporters for the important advocacy work and fundraising that they're doing every day. And we've seen incredible success on both accounts. But today we're going to focus on fundraising. And in particular, we're going to be talking about year-end fundraising, which is why you're all here. We don't have to tell you that year-end is the most important season for nonprofits. We commonly hear that 40% of annual online donations come in the last weeks of the year, with a huge portion of that coming on the last 2 days of the year, 30th and the 31st of December. And there's a couple reasons for that. First, obviously, is tax deductions. In December, people starting to think about itemizing their deductions in preparation for their 1040s that are due in April. And second, it's also the holiday season, and in the United States in particular, it's literally the season of giving. And nonprofits have benefited greatly from a season where giving to those less fortunate and the causes that you care about has become an important part of everyone's lives. And so because of these two factors, the end-of-year giving season is just part of the annual flow of the lives for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of individuals across the country and the world that are just used to donating at the end of the year to their favorite organization. So with this important season looming in just a few months, we're going to talk to you today about your organization planning now in order to maximize returns in December. The more you plan for this season's end-of-year fundraising, the more you'll be able to raise from an expanded list of engaged donors. Kate and Andrea are going to walk you through a typical year-end fundraising campaign from August to December using fundraising best practices. And to get you in the mood, we are going to take a quick poll to see where you are at with your online fundraising plans for year-end season. Are you ready to go? Do you have everything set up, or maybe you've started to think about it and done some planning, or maybe just haven't even started at all? This is going to help us figure out exactly what information to present to you. It'll be a good gauge for us to tailor the information on this webinar. And it looks like the majority of folks are not all set, but it looks like a lot of you have done some planning, and a fair amount of you are really don't even know where to start. So this is it looks like there's going to be a lot of valuable information for you all on this webinar, because we have a few experts, but a lot of folks that are just getting started. So with that, I am going to pass the microphone to the one and only Kate Thomas to get into our great example of end-of-year fundraising.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. So it looks like you guys are all in different stages of your end-of-year planning. So what we're going to do today is walk through a demonstration case study of a fictional organization called Our Families, Our Food. And in this case, Our Families, Our Food would have fallen into that category where they have their whole plan set out. So one of the very few organizations that's already ready for end of year. But hopefully it'll give you guys all some good tips and tricks to kind of get started in your planning. So a little background about Our Families, Our Food. First of all, they're focused on initiatives about keeping families safe from foodborne illness, as well as unnecessary chemicals and antibiotics in our food supply. So I think we can all get behind that. Their work includes petitioning the FDA and the USDA for higher food safety standards. And they also do a lot of general engagement messaging, so not everything is really advocacy heavy. And they have some moving stories of families who've experienced the harsh effects of unsafe foods firsthand. So lots of kind of varied content that they can share with their subscribers. They've been around for a few decades, and most of their donations have traditionally come from direct mail fundraising, like I'm sure a lot of your programs have as well. But a few years ago, they kind of dove into online fundraising, and it's been actually performing pretty well. Their holiday giving campaign each year has been outperforming itself 10% year over year, which is awesome. But in 2012, they really want to kind of knock everything out of the box and just kick butt with it. So this is just kind of a 5-month plan for how they're going to do that. Right now, their email list is about 50,000 supporters, and they have a full-time person dedicated to their online program, as well as an intern who helps with some content and managing their social media platforms. So let's start first with what they're going to do in August and September. So here you'll see a petition on change.org. So what Our Families Our Food is really focusing on in August, September is expanding that email file. As I mentioned, they have 50,000 supporters, but they want to have even more people so that when December comes around, they have more prospects for donations. They've been growing their list organically throughout the year via website traffic, their social networks, as well as their Google grants, but they really want to ramp up that growth. So they pulled together a small budget for list building this summer, and they're going to partner with change.org on a sponsored campaign to recruit 10,000 new supporters. So that 10,000 new supporters is actually 20% growth of their email list, which is going to give them a huge leg up during that end-of-year fundraising season. So here you see a quick screenshot of the sponsor petition that they're running on change.org to grow their list. And actually, any organization can start a change.org petition like this. So, after you get off the webinar today, sign off and start a petition, start a pledge. It doesn't have to be an advocacy ask. We do a lot of pledges for our nonprofit partners as well. Paid sponsorship will help that growth happen faster, and they'll get supporters that are really targeted with our team. We can help you find those really great supporters like Lawrence mentioned. But start a petition on change.org and get some viral growth from that as well. Also, you'll see here the petition page you see, if you're familiar with change.org, might be a little bit different than you're used to. And this is a result of an awesome new project that our engineers in San Francisco have been embarking on. And it's our new sneak peek of our petition show page. So you may have seen this already. You may not see it quite yet. It's still in testing, but we wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek here. So very cool page. We're excited about that. But back to Our Families Our Food. So they have 10,000 new supporters from this sponsor petition they're working on with change.org. And the key here is really over the next couple months, September, October, November, welcoming these supporters right away, getting them engaged in that program so that in December they're ready for $200 or $500 or $1,000 from these supporters. So one key thing to do here is this acquisition topic, the no antibiotics, is really what they're going to be focusing on throughout the rest of the year. So they looked at their end of year. They said, okay, we know at end of year we're going to be talking about this particular issue, so let's acquire new supporters on the issue we're going to be talking about in December. So it's a really kind of smart way to think backwards about your program over the next few months and acquire supporters now, whether it's through your Google grants, through list chaperones, through some sponsored ads, through partnering with change.org, whatever your plan may be to grow that email list. Think about what you'll be talking about in December and work your way backwards and acquire on that issue now. So once you've acquired those new supporters, your key is going to be welcoming them. So the first step to turning that new subscriber into a donor is to make them feel like they are part of your movement and of your network. If that subscriber doesn't feel like they're really important to you, they're going to say, you know what, there's another organization out there for me that I'll join. So they'll unsubscribe from your list and they'll go somewhere else. And of course, if they're not on your list, they're not going to be able to receive emails from you in December. So one thing that Our Families Our Food is really focused on here is the consistent branding. So they don't have any really fancy email templates here. That's what you're looking at here is a screenshot of their welcome message. Nothing super fancy, but they use their logo. They use some simple colors, some simple images, and you'll see in the slides to come that Andrea will show in a few minutes that this design kind of goes throughout their whole program. So they're very consistent with that. It's kind of a good important key. Make sure all your messages look similar so people know what they're seeing. So here again, quick screenshot of the welcome message. A couple of things to note in addition to the branding and formatting that I mentioned. Here they're sharing a video. So if you don't have an advocacy ask, that is totally fine. If you're not an advocacy organization, you have plenty of other things that you have kind of in your toolbox to share with your subscribers to get them engaged in your work. So here we're sharing a video. It's going to help educate the supporters about your work. It's also going to give them an opportunity to share that video on some of the social networks. So here you'll see the ask is share the video on Facebook or post it on Twitter. And then right under the signature, you'll see the Facebook and Twitter logos which will help you grow your Facebook and Twitter list directly from these supporters. So you kind of have three things going on in this message, and none of it is really advocacy focused, even though Our Families, Our Food is an advocacy organization. So definitely some options here for those of you who aren't direct advocacy organizations to welcome these folks to your network. But here with Facebook and Twitter, the key is to grow those networks from your email list so that you're going to be able to hit these people in all these different channels come December. So your email subscribers will be able to be reminded via Twitter about the ongoing fundraising campaign, which Andrea will mention in a couple minutes.
That's a great point, Kate. And it leads us to our first takeaway. We like to insert takeaways into the webinars we host so that just have a moment to pause and think about what we just talked about and give you a high point, a takeaway. And in this case, whether it's cultivating followers on social media or doing a list growth acquisition, it's important to invest in relationships now that will pay off in December. If you have the budget, consider that now because you need to work those folks into your email messaging and your email campaign so that they're ready to give in December. That's our first takeaway. And we are going back now to Kate to talk about what the next steps are for communicating with your supporters.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. Yeah, so great takeaway there. Basically, August, September, great time to grow your email list. Whether you have budget to do that or you're using a free tool to do that, just make that a focus of your time. So the key here is once you have these new subscribers. So in this case, Our Families, Our Food has these new folks, say, September 15th or so. And the key here, once they've been welcomed, is to engage that entire list in a creative way that also maybe helps Our Families, Our Food here at the organization learn more about their list, as well as kind of kick off a fall fundraising campaign or some fall fundraising emails. So here's a quick screenshot of the email announcing a quiz or a survey that's going to go to their full list. And this here, again, is not advocacy focused, so also works for non-advocacy organizations. The quiz starts with a couple questions about their main campaigns and gets a little bit of information about what supporters want to get from you. What are they expecting? What are they excited about? What brought them to your organization in the first place? So learning a little bit about that can be really, really valuable. The one thing to note here is that a response rate for a message like this is not going to be super high. This is not a super easy action. It takes a couple minutes to complete, but the information that Our Families, Our Food is going to get from this is going to be really, really useful for their upcoming campaigns. So one way that this email is going to help them is they're engaging their supporters. So again, supporters feel like their voice is being heard, and that's one of the most important things that we can do as nonprofits. The second is they're going to be getting a lot of useful information from these questions to help inform their upcoming campaigns. So if these supporters say that that particular issue is really important to them in this survey, then maybe the organization will think about changing around one of their messages for year-end from this survey. And then kind of most important to me, I think one of the cool things you get from an email like this is identifying the folks who've responded and who've given you some really, really awesome feedback. And those are going to be great prospects for a volunteer ask or any other kind of higher bar ask, calling Congress, coming to a meeting, coming to some kind of event. Those are the kind of people you're identifying with a message like this to do a lot more things for you in the future. So really kind of three big takeaways here: engaging your supporters, getting information from them, and identifying who the best supporters on your file are. So again, always a great strategy to kind of launch a fundraising campaign with some kind of advocacy or engagement action, and that's exactly what this is here. This is kind of a lead-off to a fundraising campaign that Our Families, Our Food was going to run in, say, early October. And sometimes it's a matching gift campaign. Sometimes it's a simple donation campaign to try and get that Q3 money in. And sometimes it's just a message or two, because usually not many of us go too many months without asking for money occasionally. So, but it's always nice to kind of include an advocacy or engagement message in that series so that your users don't always feel like they're getting hit up for cash. So next, we'll talk a little bit about that fall fundraising campaign, or really that fall fundraising period, whether it's a concerted campaign or, again, just a message or two, or if you're just focusing on the donation page on your website. The key is to use this time in October and November, or even September, to do some testing. So you want those donation pages and the whole donation flow for your users to be totally seamless when December 30th comes around. So use this time now in the fall to really test a lot of things. So one easy thing to test first here is subject lines. You should be testing these really all the time, but in the fall is a great time to be able to really focus some effort on this. So the more people you get to open your email, the more people you're going to get to give you gifts. You know, if 5,000 people open the email versus 10,000, having 10,000 people open it is going to give you a lot more presents at the end of the day. So here are two subject lines that we put together for that pop quiz email that we just showed. The first is pop quiz, what's on your dinner plate? Versus a subject line like, do you know unsafe food when you see it? They're both kind of provocative and they're both interesting. They're both directly related to the content, but my guess is that one of these would perform much better than the other. So the only way to know that is to test it. Another thing to test here is action flow. So sometimes you'll have an advocacy ask or an engagement ask or a video ask, and you'll follow that up with a donation ask. And then some cases you're just going to go right to that donation ask. So test that against each other. It's actually possible that you could raise more money from a fundraising page after an action page than you would from a fundraising page alone. There's no way to really know unless you try it and see what works. And the fall would be a great time to do that because if it works and it's awesome, then do it again in December. So just a little tip there here, you know, be creative, try some new things, and test things in the fall so that you can really kind of blow things out of the water in December. And then, of course, analyzing those results. Testing things without looking at the results is pretty pointless and it's a waste of our time. So look at those results. If there's anything statistically significant, act on it. If it's not statistically significant, maybe skip it. There are some really cool calculators online. You can just Google, you know, statistical significance, and it'll come up with a lot of free tools where you can enter the size of the audience, the result you got, and it'll tell you, you know, with 95% certainty, this was a test that will probably, you know, have the same result going forward. So good to look at that there. And then the next piece is really optimizing based on those tests. So here we have a couple donation forms, which is a big thing that you can test in the fall so that, again, when December 31st comes around, your donation form is really optimized for conversion. So really a conversion rate is of the people who land on this page, how many actually complete all these forms and hit that submit button. And actually that number is probably a lot lower than you expect. So if you can double that conversion rate from, say, you know, 25% to 50% of the people who land on this form actually complete it, you're going to be in really, really good shape, and you're going to see all that extra money come rolling in. So there's a lot of tools you can use to do that. There's one called Optimizely. There's the Google Analytics Content Experiments, which used to be called the Google Optimizer tool. So some are free, some you have to pay for, but really cool tools out there to help you test these forms. So a couple things you could test here. First is any kind of copy that's on the form. You know, is there a story on the form? Is it just a quick thing that says, thanks for your gift? Is there a video or is there an image? And you can test all those elements. Here you can see that there's one form here on the left that has too many fields and one on the right that's been optimized for giving. So usually you want as few fields as possible, but it's worth it to test. You know, test dropping title, test dropping middle initial. I don't think any of us have ever used middle initial in fundraising, so in most cases there's probably no reason to have it on your donation page, and it's just an extra field so that when a donor lands on this page, they look at it and they say, oh, I don't have time for that. So in a lot of cases you're going to want as few fields as possible, but test it and see what works in the fall so that December you're ready to roll. Next thing to test, up at the top, you have the donation amount. In most cases, you want to have some predetermined amounts, like you'll see on the right. But maybe here it says $35. Maybe you should test $25. Maybe some people are looking at this form and saying, oh, $35 is too much. You know, there's always an option to enter another amount, but you know, maybe test a few things there in the gift strings, the donation amounts as well. And then at the bottom of the form, you see the donate button on the right. The other form is actually way too long. We couldn't fit the donate form on the slide. But here, there's a nice big orange donate button. So test big donate buttons versus small ones. Test the colors of the donate button. Test the color that's within your palette or a totally random color like red or something like that. So lots of different things you can test here. It's actually some really fun stuff, and you can really see some good improvements on your donation form. And again, you want to be able to get all this done before December comes around so that when December comes around, you have that awesome optimized conversion rate. One other quick note before I pass things back to Lawrence would be you want a giant donate button like this big orange one down here on the right, on your homepage. In November and December, if somebody lands on your homepage looking to donate, you want to make that as easy as possible. You do not want to make them have to look on your page for how to do that. So make sure you have that nice, big, red, orange, green donate button so that's really, really obvious where somebody should go.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, and I will echo that there's nothing more satisfying than seeing your conversion increase after doing some testing and optimization. And that's our next takeaway, is that it's really important to test and optimize during the fall fundraising period so that you can apply the best ideas in December. You can get the most out of that highest giving time. And you can't just do that in December. That needs to be done well in advance. So get started now. And now, in our webinar, we're going to pass it over to Andrea, who is going to walk us through some next steps in the end-of-year fundraising season.
Great. Thanks, Lawrence. So as Kate mentioned, the really important idea that we hope everybody takes away from this webinar is that all of the pieces of your plan will work in concert together and build a stronger case for your supporters to give than if you just worked on each of these elements alone in more of like a piecemeal fashion. And one of the really important pieces for many nonprofits is direct mail. Cross-promotion keeps the echo chamber ringing, and it's really, really important to promote your mail piece in your email and also highlight your donation web forms in your paper direct mail that people get in their mailboxes. So if people open their mailbox and grab a direct mail piece from you, make it easy for them just to quickly hop online and donate. And the really great thing about that is that you can then bank that donation right away instead of waiting weeks for that check to arrive. So another great tip is to use unique URLs, like in this example, ourfamiliesourfood.org/holiday gift. Use those kinds of URLs to promote exclusively on your paper mail, and that allows you to keep track of how much is coming from people who receive your direct mail pieces and then jump online to give. And here's another idea for you. Send out a Save a Stamp email message. So you want to time these messages so that they land in people's inboxes just days before a direct mail piece hits mailboxes. And it basically just says, you're about to get a mail piece from us, but you can click here right now and give online and save us a stamp. And another way you can use these Save a Stamp emails is that you can send them exclusively to like some of your most responsive donors on your list. And that way you've actually done them a favor by making giving really, really easy. And again, you can bank that gift even faster than if they sent you a check. So make it multi-channel. Email and direct mail still rule in fundraising, but you can use any and all communication channels that you have at your disposal, no matter where your organization is in communications or resources. But whatever the channels you have available to you, you really should keep banging that drum during end of year. And you can keep your message and your mission repeating in the minds of people you're reaching. So keep hammering the deadline, December 31, and just make sure you're always appealing to those reasons that people give this time of year every year. It's a season to give, and they have an opportunity to take advantage of the tax deductibility before 2012 rolls away. And another important thing to remember that a lot of us forget because we're so busy and slammed during the chaos of end of year is great customer service. Because even if some people on your list never give during this the season of giving, you really want to make a good impression. And you want to make sure that you thank your donors because they have a lot of choices for where to give their money. And all of those extra touches really add up. And multi-channel promotion is really only limited by your bandwidth, your resources, and your imagination. You can tweet thanks at donors on Twitter. You can go on Facebook. You can post an image of your progress thermometer for your campaign. You can grab an awesome photo of your work and ask people to share it on Facebook with their friends and family. Every way that supporters interact with your organization is a potential donation channel. set up a takeover lightbox on your home page. You can use the great the great image that you put on your donation page and share that out on Pinterest and link it back to your donation page. And if you're lucky enough to have a mobile list, go out to your mobile list with a text to donate, or at minimum, just try and make sure that your emails are mobile friendly if you can. And if you just Google mobile friendly web design, you can actually get some pretty simple tips for how to make sure your emails are friendly for folks that are going to open them up and check them out and read them on their mobile devices. And if your executive director plans on posting a year-end roundup blog post, just make sure you can influence the content a little bit and drop a link to donate in the content at least once. If you print a mail newsletter, a lot of organizations still do this. Be sure to include a donation envelope and drop in that unique URL to go online and donate. And if you're sending a monthly emailed newsletter in October, November, and December, give your fundraising campaign some prominent real estate in the design. That's yet another opportunity to reach out and give people an opportunity to donate.
Awesome. Incredible tips and pointers there, Andrea. And the overall takeaway here is to use everything that you have at your disposal, all of the channels and profiles, to create an echo chamber that boosts fundraising. There's many points at which we need to touch a donor before they're motivated to donate. So take advantage of what you have. And as Andrea said, it's only limited by your staff resources, and that can be tight sometimes. So plan ahead and plan staff hours to be able to deliver on this for the end of the year.
Cool. Thanks, Lawrence. So let's talk about calendar for year-end messages. Everybody on this call probably knows that the content of your emails is really important, but timing is also really critical. Don't forget to be strategic about your communications calendar. When you send emails actually matters a lot. What we found works really well for most organizations is to build a crescendo. So you want to intensify those calls to donate as you get closer to the final day, December 31st. And I've had some organizations send as many as 3 emails in that final week of December, including a last chance message in the final hours on December 31st. And those can sometimes be the most successful emails that you send. Most of the people on your list have come to just sort of expect this kind of uptick in email traffic and fundraising traffic this time of year, and they'll be pretty forgiving of a more heavy-handed approach. But just know you're going to see higher unsubscribe rates this time of year. And I know it's sad to see people go and leave your list, but I always tell clients that people are unsubscribing. They're leaving for a reason. They weren't really likely to give or support your work if you're sending them great content that's from the heart and compelling. So just chalk up unsubscribes as disinterested folks and keep doing the great work that you're doing. If you take a look at this calendar example for Our Families, Our Food, you'll notice that there are some messages that we've repeated. People don't read every email that you send. I know this comes as a huge shocker. But that's why open rates are somewhere between 10 and 30% usually. 70 to 90% of people will not be opening your email. So, some people will get message 1 and 2 in your series, and they'll never open them. They'll ignore them. Maybe they had, a pretty thick inbox that day and just didn't get to it. But they might open message 3, and you can actually use this to your advantage. You don't necessarily have to write 5 unique emails in a series. You can see a great response and actually save yourself some work by creatively resending the most compelling messages with a lift note at the top. And of course, you want to only target non-donors. So calendaring is important, but content is still really, really critical. Writing compelling appeals is definitely worth the extra time and effort. You really want to put best practices to work in your email, and that often means for a lot of organizations they actually start working on drafts in early November, even earlier. because they realize that putting resources behind crafting the message content and the stream is really, really important. It can have a big impact on your final results. And you want to make sure you put best practices to work in these emails, and including things like put your supporters in the story of your organization as the hero in your appeals. And we could do an entire webinar just on this, just on how to write awesome fundraising appeals. But we're going to just share a couple of great resources for how to write great appeals, and a couple of really great websites that can sort of help give you some ideas about how you might construct some good, compelling content for your series. So we've also spent some time talking about testing, and Kate went through some really great recommendations for testing. But I definitely recommend building in a little extra time in the email schedule to at least, at minimum, do an A/B subject line test. Test these to small segments so you can roll out the winner to the rest of your list, Even a really small increase in your open rate, because you did this kind of testing, will yield real money results. I always say that testing is cheaper than not knowing or doing the wrong thing. And remember to look back on those results from your fall campaign, which you can use all of those results, learn and apply what you discovered during your fall campaign. The other thing to keep in mind is don't forget the throwaway emails that are easy to neglect when building out your email strategy. People open up automatic thank you messages. Donors actually do read those. Make sure that it's actually a heartfelt thanks and not just a canned, hey, thanks for the donation. And Kate mentioned this earlier, but tweeting at donors is really clever, and donors really appreciate the personal touch and attention. And your donors that are on Twitter are likely going to be your most vocal, passionate folks on social networks, so it really pays off. So make sure great customer service is just part of your plan, and you're going to be rewarded down the line for paying attention to those kinds of details.
Excellent. And speaking of testing, we're going to do some testing on all of you. We want to use you to test a couple subject lines for our families, our food. Which one of these subject lines do you think is the best? Which one, if you saw in your inbox, would you open? And I think that the point of this exercise is to demonstrate that despite all our creative efforts, all our brainstorming, all the best thought we can put into figuring out a subject line, we can't predict what subject lines will perform best. That's why we test. And what I think is the best subject line, I'm a big fan of E. coli changed my family forever. Not the message, but the subject line. But it looks like a parent's nightmare is the subject line that is getting the highest response here. And that will be a 33% difference or so in performance and conversion, which is huge. So test, test, test. And we are getting close to the end of the year here. Great time to be entering questions into the chat window if you have any. And turning it back to Andrea to kind of wrap up with some thoughts about the end of year giving season.
Cool. Thanks, Lawrence. And it's important to keep in mind that the winner of this quiz, this sort of survey, may not actually be the winner when you test it out to your list. So that's just sort of a demonstration that even though you might think you know in your gut which test is going to work, testing is cheaper than getting it wrong. So you want to make sure that you get it right and test.
That's a great quote. Testing is cheaper than getting it wrong.
Yes.
A takeaway that we didn't put in the slides, but I'm calling it out right now.
So now it's time to celebrate. Our families, our food staff members have worked like dogs. It's time to take a nice break and enjoy the holidays. And we hope you guys all are able to do just that. Celebrate the New Year with friends and family and just forget about work for at least a few hours. Recharge and rest. And then when you get back to it in early January, you can start crunching these numbers. So We basically took our fictional organization, Our Families, Our Food, and they worked hard and wrung every cent out of every channel. And of course, every single organization is going to be unique in how they build their list, how they engage their list, and they're going to see different results. But basically what we did is we took our demo organization that we had, and we applied benchmarks for response rate and average gift to see how they would do. And for organizations who apply these best practices, you can expect to see good results and hopefully a bump in results if you try a couple of these new tips as well. So just focusing on the year-end results, we assumed averages. So average gift size of $62, and we sent 5 appeals in end of year. And so applying the benchmarks, we come out with 2 scenarios. So scenario 1 just assumes that Our Families, Our Food didn't do any paid acquisition. It's where a lot of organizations are. They're doing their year-end planning with little or no budget to grow their list, and even without investing in list growth, you can see really strong returns by putting these best practices to work. And you can see in this scenario of response averages, the organization gained revenue at a total of $17,400. And in scenario 2, it includes a boost in list size from acquisition. So the 10,000 new supporters to inject energy into their fundraising. So this also means that there are 10,000 more email recipients for each of their 5 year-end appeals. And in this scenario, they received several more gifts and got a nice bump of about 23%.
Excellent. And the final takeaway on our webinar is part takeaway, part inspirational, motivational, go get 'em, rah, rah, rah. But there's some truth in there. Your year-end campaign is stronger than the sum of its parts. So start your plan now, keep it together, and raise more money. It really is possible. It can be done if you start ahead of time, and it's such a crucial element for every nonprofit that has to go out and raise money. So why are you not thinking about it now? Why are you not spending time to create a better plan than you had last year to bring in more money? And we actually, to help you with your efforts, have something special to offer. Do you want to share the surprise, Andrea?
Sure. All right, everybody look under your chairs. Ah! Okay, we're sort of kidding around, but our team really wanted to provide something that would be useful to each of you facing this sort of year-end chaos. And we could tell from the early poll that a lot of you are overwhelmed and just starting to really think about things. So, and the interwebs are all abuzz with tips for year-end fundraising and webinars and white papers, and really we just wanted to be able to hand you the tools that you could adapt and put to work no matter how big or small your organization might be, or whether you can invest in list growth or not. So, so it's not under your chairs, but we are going to send you a plan and all of the elements in the next few days that we talked about in these slides. We're also going to make sure everybody has a recording of the presentation, and we're going to send you the plan it's going to include the raw materials that you can really use. So we're going to give you sample welcome email, tips on tracking social media shares, ways to integrate offline and online fundraising campaigns, and even some appeal copy that you're free to steal. So look for that.
Awesome. Really invaluable. Thank you, Andrea and Kate. We are going to start to take some questions, but I just wanted to note that we are going to keep going for the next 15 minutes and answer questions. There may be some questions we don't get to. You may want to hear more about sponsored campaigns to grow your list before you get into year-end fundraising appeals. Whatever your questions are, feel free to follow up with us at nonprofits@change.org. Even if you want to learn more about our free petition tool, we do have webinars available about best practices for free online petitions that we run on a regular basis. So please do be in touch at nonprofits@change.org, and we will jump into some questions, starting with a number of questions that have come in about testing. And Kate, I'm going to throw these your way. Sure. There's a number of questions. How could you test with only 50,000 people? What is statistically significant sample size? What's the smallest database you would consider segmenting for testing purposes. If you have some thoughts on how to do testing, especially for smaller lists, that sounds like a lot of people have that on top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it actually takes
Hey, you're a little soft. Can you speak up just a tad into your microphone?
Yeah, sure. All right.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, is that better? Awesome.
It is. Thank you.
So it actually takes a smaller list than you might think to do some testing. When I saw some of these questions coming through, I started using one of those online calculators to do a little bit of the math and just see how big of a list you might need. So if we're looking at open rates, let's say, of an email list, and we have 400 total people on the email list, and you split that list in half, and you sent 200, let's say a subject line, and 200 another subject line, and one of those groups had 75 people open the email, and the other group had 50 people open the email, you actually have a very significant result there. Even though your difference is only 25 people, using like basic intro statistics, which I know very little about, but I rely on the internet to teach me those things, you actually have a pretty big difference there that has a clear 99% confidence winner. So you don't always need a huge list to do testing. In terms of the donation page stuff that I talked about, in some cases you might just want to use some best practices that we found as an industry. So again, like the fewer fields as possible, you could test it, but with the amount of traffic that a lot of us get on our donation pages, it may take a couple months to get an actual result. So it may make sense to rely a little bit on what other groups have tested and eliminate as many extraneous fields as possible. We've worked with a ton of organizations, Andrea, myself, and the rest of the campaign strategy team here at change.org, and I don't think we've ever seen an organization where adding extra fields helped the conversion rate. So there's a couple things that I mentioned in the testing portion that you actually would be in good shape if you just did it, especially, and look at other organizations in your field or in your cause area, in your issue area that are being really effective, and copy them. Right? So our industry is all about learning from each other and sharing best practices. And if we see another group that's doing something awesome and we think that they're raising a lot of money online and their donation page looks like this, try that. So yeah, I think when we send out the tools in a couple of days, I'll add a couple of these calculators to those tools so that you guys can play with them and see with your email audience of 500, 1,000, 10,000 people, what kind of tests you'd be able to do mathematically to get some significant results.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. Another question about an organization that uses Salsa Labs for their database and asking if there's a feature that they can use to integrate new users that they acquire through change.org into their database. And I thought that, Andrea, you might have some thoughts about not only Salsa, but just integration with other databases and CRMs generally.
Sure. So this has been a high priority because response rates and return on investment in new list members depends a lot on how quickly you can go out immediately and touch them with initial communication once they're new on your list. So we've actually spent quite a bit of resources, our product and engineering team, to make sure that we can have seamless integration with a lot of CRMs out there and databases, including Salsa, Salesforce, Convio, and also some of the Civic CRM, some of the smaller ones as well, and some of the open source ones. So we can actually set it up so that you get a delivery daily of new folks who sign your petition.
Excellent. A couple questions about social media. Kate, I'm going to pass this back to you. Social media and just general list growth. What are some of the sources that you can use for list growth? And if you have any suggestions about how to connect with your donors on social media tools. For example, how do you know what a donor's Twitter handle is and whether he is following you? So any thoughts you might have on both list growth and then how you integrate your list with social media?
Great. Yeah, lots of, again, I think we could have a whole webinar just talking about how you can kind of wrap social media into this. But I guess a couple quick answers. In terms of ways to grow your list, you could run some kind of contest on Facebook. People do it a lot with, do a caption contest to a photo that you upload. You know, if you're an environmental organization, put an environmental picture up there, an animals organization, you know, a human services organization, put a photo up there that's related to your campaign and run a caption contest. And then have all those caption contests, you know, fill out an email submit form, and that's how they'll get their prize. There's kind of lots of creative and fun ways you can get people from your social media onto your email list and vice versa. One we already mentioned in the webinar, you know, getting social media folks with those links. You may not always know who is who. There are services out there that are able to help match your email subscribers with your social media. I don't know anything about the cost or anything, but it is a service that exists. But in some ways, if you're tweeting about donations, sometimes you'll just have somebody like me, KT1, I'll respond back and be like, oh, I just made a $25 gift. And then you can kind of track and you can look in your database real quick. Oh, who was that? Oh, that was Kate Thomas, and she lives in Washington, D.C., and now I know that her Twitter handle is KT1. You can just kind of do it that way. So if you're doing things like throughout December tweeting out about your fundraising campaign, people are going to respond and say, hey, yeah, I just made my gift. You'll start to track that. But it is kind of a puzzle in trying to identify who of your social media followers are on your email list and vice versa. What was the other question about? Oh, growing your social media list. I mean, again, I think it's just a process. Other ways you can do email list growth that we didn't talk about, but again, could be its own webinar, are list chaperones with other organizations. So if there's another organization in your space and you guys both want to grow your email list, you could work together. You could send out each other's actions and kind of share list members in that way. So there's lots of fun ways you could grow your email list and your social media supporters. I think the key is to try and be creative. Again, look at what other organizations are doing and see what you can do to emulate their success. But yeah, again, we could definitely do a whole other webinar about social media and how this tags into things.
Indeed, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention again that Change.org sponsored campaigns are also another great way to grow your list if you have a little bit of extra resources or budget to invest in a longer-term relationship with new supporters. That does pay off over time. So you know, that's one of our core offerings to nonprofits and organizations to help with fundraising is our sponsor campaign service. So feel free to follow up with us at nonprofits@change.org to learn more about that. Andrea, someone asked, you said something that I thought was really cool about making donors and responders and those high-value supporters feel special. Do you have any thoughts about what some of the things you could do to make someone feel special? I mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. I would invite Kate to pipe up as well, but I think tweeting at folks is important. I think segmenting them so that they maybe even get their own messaging stream, and just, you know, and you can use conditional content with some CRMs that say things like, we've been able to rely on your support for the past X number of years, however long they've been on your file. Just trying to segment them out as, you know, you've noticed that they've been a sustaining supporter of the organization, tweeting at them, making sure that, I mean, especially if they're larger dollar donors, even giving them a call if you have the resources. I don't know, Kate, if you have any other thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great things. I guess a couple other things that I've done with organizations, you know, creating like a thank you video, I think helps connect the organization back to the supporter so that you can kind of get that second, third, and fourth gift. Another cool thing would be to invite those same high-value donors that you might make a phone call to thank them for their gift in addition to the receipt they'll be getting in the mail or via email. You could do some kind of fun, like, you know, chat with the executive director where they could really hear a little bit more about the strategy for the upcoming months and things like that. I mean, I think when Andrea mentioned kind of what January looks like and you're evaluating your campaign and you're thanking your donors, there's a lot of fun, creative ways that you can thank those donors and make them feel important there. But the key is, again, throughout your messaging, like Andrea said, making those donors continuously feeling like they are the reason that you exist as an organization and that they are really at the forefront of your messaging, I think is really just the key.
Gotcha. There are some questions about timing and frequency of emails. And Kate, I'm going to go back to you on this one. is there a best practice for total number of emails to send? I saw 5 in December. Any other recommendations? And then a similar question about whether or not fundraising efforts or appeals in the fall could hurt you later in December. In other words, is it possible to ask for too much throughout the year and take a hit in December? So thoughts on frequency and volume of email appeals.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's what we all worry about constantly is, are we emailing enough or are we not emailing enough? And I think there is a delicate balance, and I don't think that there's any kind of like silver bullet number. I think between, say, September and October and December, I don't think that there's any risk there of, asking somebody for a gift in September and October and then them in December feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're asking me for money again. You've given them a fair amount of time to kind of, without any asks coming directly to them. And the end of the year, again, as Lawrence mentioned in the beginning, we're so used to giving at that part of the year, and it's actually a really saturated market. So the people that are on your list are probably also getting hit up by other organizations. So the key is to make sure that you're not getting lost. So if you're only sending 1 or 2 emails in December, you're probably going to get lost because these people's inboxes are so full. I bet there's not anybody on this webinar who doesn't get more emails than they can possibly read. So I think the 5 emails that Andrea laid out in the calendar here is a pretty good practice. A lot of organizations send a lot more than that. A lot of organizations send 10 emails in the last few days, including 2 or 3 a day on those last couple days. So it's really what you're comfortable with, what your team is able to do, and what can help you kind of stand out in that crowded market.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. There is a question about, and you talked about this a little bit, another question for you, Kate, about tactics and fundraising tactics for organizations that do not include advocacy. Knowing that there are individuals who have taken that, how do you, if that's not a comfortable way to communicate or fundraise for an organization, what are some examples of different types of asks that you would include in an email appeal?
Yeah, I mean, actually a lot of the examples we talked about today, even though our example organization does a lot of advocacy, those are tools that you can use to engage your supporters even without it being an advocacy ask. So, you've created a video and you want them to share that video. You want them to tell their friends about this particular campaign, or run some sort of contest or do a quiz or a survey. You could submit a photo or do a photo wall where you're collecting photos of all your supporters. A lot of health organizations do that. So there's a lot of ways without doing direct advocacy you can still keep your users engaged without having to ask them for money all the time. It's really just about kind of digging into the, kind of your creative ideas of what you can do, hunger organizations doing lunch bags. There's kind of all these fun things that if you and a couple of the people on your team maybe put your heads together for a really creative 15-minute brainstorm and think about, what would our users want to see from us? To really get engaged in our list, and how can we let them know more about our work as an organization while still bringing them into that. So there's a lot of different ways. There's lots of fun ways you can kind of keep those people engaged. But the key is, in between fundraising messages and with all fundraising campaigns, just include some more engaging content, teach them more about what you're doing, and get them really excited about your work.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Andrea. We are pretty much at the top of the hour here, so we're going to wrap up. Remind everyone that you'll be receiving a thank you email for attending with some amazing resources that our equally amazing client services team has put together. So wait for that, and once you get it, start sprinting. The end of year is right around the corner, and now is the time to get started. If that wasn't clear from the previous hour of thoughts and tips and tricks, thank you so much for attending. We hope you found some value in this, and we hope to see you online very soon. Take care.